Welcome, everyone, to the latest iteration of Nick's Yemen Roundup, covering the 2 weeks between 29 September and 13 October 2025. This is Nick Bromfield. As I mentioned during our last edition, this is now going to be a bi-weekly call, not for any bad reasons, but just because I'm too busy with work that I fortunately do not have enough time to do this every week, but I do have enough time to do it every 2 weeks. And that seems to be an efficient way to communicate information without letting it get overly long between posting periods. So just look forward to that once every 2 weeks. As always, I'm Nick J. Brumfield. I have an MA in Arab Studies from Georgetown University and have been engaged professionally in analyzing Middle East politics for a decade, and I'm regularly quoted in international media. I have an extensive background in project and data management, GIS capabilities, political risk, business intelligence, and legal consulting, not just on Yemen, but across the Middle East more broadly. And I'm even starting to perhaps try to branch out into Southeast Asia, where I currently reside. All of this is to say that if you have need of anybody with those skills or just a good researcher who can put together a good product for you, please feel free to reach out at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. That is the main way to reach me for professional contacts. Obviously, I'm also on Twitter and Blue Sky and LinkedIn as well. But for professional contacts, that's the place. But if you're unable to throw work my way, that's fine. Just don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my products so that other people can see them and hopefully you can spread some word about some of the work that I'm doing if you enjoy it. With that, though, we can go ahead and get started with what people are actually here for, which is what's been going on in Yemen over the course of the past 2 weeks. And boy, there has been a fair few developments both within Yemen and regionally, starting off with international affairs, specifically with regards to the United Nations. We did see a couple interesting developments this week over the past 2 weeks. On 2 October, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres proposed merging the UN mission to support the Hadeda Agreement into the UN Special Envoy for Yemen office as part of an ongoing streamlining of humanitarian and UN operations across the globe, just because there's just been a massive shortfall in funding. This is something that I think people have been waiting for the last several years. The UN mission to support the Hadeda Agreement was established to oversee a ceasefire line, essentially, between the Houthis and Yemeni government forces in 2018. That ceasefire line has now essentially become meaningless just because due to redeployments and everything, it no longer exists. And so the UNMHA has been a target of some criticism of, oh, you have UN spending money on stuff it doesn't need to. So them rationalizing that doesn't come as too much of a surprise. We did see on 6 October, the UN Office of the Special Envoy of the Secretary General for Yemen sent a delegation to visit the mothers of the abducted in Taz City, and just sort of discuss the ongoing need for a prisoner exchange and releasing prisoners and just better political and human rights in general. We did see on 7 October, the UN OSSG condemned the Houthis' detention of 9 additional UN personnel. Starting in June 2024, the Houthis have been, well, actually, even before that, they had abducted some UN personnel, but really it was in June 2024 when they really started rounding up dozens at a time of UN workers under, accusing them essentially of spying for the US and Israel. They've done multiple rounds of this at this point. And this in early October, there was another round where they first abducted 10 and then they released one, so 9 total. And so now there are 53 believed UN workers in UN custody, in addition to dozens, if not hundreds, of workers for other international organizations that aren't UN aligned, and embassies, that kind of thing, that the Houthis have abducted on charges of being spies. Seen little evidence to indicate this. But yeah, so that is going on. So you've seen the UN and the international community, particularly since June 2024, take a progressively much harder line against the Houthis. They just recently announced that they're going to move their UN resident coordinator's office from Sana'a to Aden amid all of these abductions. And so, yeah, so then the Houthis in turn feel like they need to get more leverage, so they're going to, abduct more people or something along those lines. So, yeah, it's not a great situation. Moving on over to international affairs from the Yemeni government perspective, we did see a lot of engagement by Yemeni government officials or various international parties with them throughout the week. Between 29 September and 9 October, we did see U.S. Ambassador Stephen Fagan, who had been kind of moved off the Yemen file temporarily. I believe he was assigned to the embassy in Baghdad. And then you did see the charge d'affaires kind of take over the U.S. diplomatic file on Yemen in Riyadh. Jonathan Pacha there for a bit, but Fagan's back. He's been back for the last a month or so. And he was in Riyadh this week and met with a lot of key stakeholders, including Royal Foreign Minister Zindani, Presidential Leadership Council members Abdullah Bawazir and Arada, as well as Islah Party leadership. He also met with Interior Minister Haydan, as well as Presidential Leadership Council member Saleh. So a lot going on. There's been a lot of international mediation over the course of the last couple of weeks, particularly as we've seen reports of ongoing dissension within the Presidential Leadership Council, particularly around PLC member Idris al-Zubaydi's appointments that took place several weeks ago now. So there's just been a lot going on, a lot of engagement. We'll see if it goes anywhere. We did see on 1 October, Russia appointed a new ambassador to Yemen, Yevgeny Kudrov. Yevgeny Kudrov, I believe, has been either the acting ambassador or the charge d'affaires of the Russian embassy to Yemen, also based in Riyadh. For the last while now, he's been the guy that the Russians have sent to engage with Yemeni government officials in Riyadh. So him being ambassador, I don't think is too much of a change. We did see on 1 October as well, India announced that it is opening or had opened a representative office in Aden. This is the first kind of embassy physically on Yemeni soil, as opposed to in Riyadh, where most of the embassies are at, in years. And so that was considered a big win. India has been, I think, relatively forward positioned with its diplomatic presence for a little while, but them sort of announcing that they're opening the office and everything is pretty big. 1 October, so between 1 October and I believe 7 October, we did see Prime Minister Salim bin Barak traveled to the UAE, where he met with a number of senior officials, including the UAE ambassador to Yemen, Zolbi, as well as UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed. This picture here on the right is of that meeting. We also did see on 10 October, Presidential Leadership Council member Tariq Saleh, who maintains a residence in the UAE, also met with Zolbi as well. We did see on 9 October, Prime Minister bin Barak meet with UK Ambassador Abdul Sharif, who also met with a couple different officials throughout the week, I believe Interior Minister Haydan as well. And then on 11 October, bin Barak traveled to Amman, where he was talking to the IMF, among other folks, and visited the Kamran Company, which is a major Yemeni company, state-owned company that is, I believe, registered in Jordan or one of Jordan's free zones. Visited them amid the ongoing recent U.S. sanctions against the Houthi version of the Kamran Company, which the U.S. sanctions accused that version of the company of being a major arm of the Houthi economic machine. And so they've really, really sanctioned them heavily. So the fact that there's a Yemeni government-aligned Kamran Company perhaps presents some complications for it. And so, so engaging with that as well. Moving on over to international affairs from the Houthi movement perspective, we did see on 30 September, the Houthis announced an end to the U.S.-Yemen ceasefire that was agreed to on 6 May 2025. That saw an end to Houthi attacks against U.S. ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, and an end to U.S. airstrikes on Houthi-held areas of Yemen. As a result, as part of this, the Houthis announced that they were sanctioning 13 major U.S. oil companies. Essentially, whether or not this is going to become anything, I think remains to be seen, particularly given the Gaza ceasefire that may or may not hold. But essentially what this is for the Houthis is the Houthis rhetorically responding, saying that they're doing in kind what the U.S. has been doing to them, which is heavily sanctioning their oil trading networks that they use to bring in fuel to Houthi-held areas of Yemen, and also make a lot of money doing that through Hodeidah. The U.S. has consistently, over the past several months, been sanctioning ships or companies involved in the movement of oil into Hodeidah, or even just sort of around the Middle East in ways that make the Houthis and their primary backer Iran money. So yeah, this is them saying, okay, you're going to do that, we're going to do that too. We're sanctioning you, and we're going to use whatever is in our power to target U.S. oil exports, more or less. Whether that actually ends up in them shooting at any ships after the Gaza ceasefire, I think remains to be seen. I would lean no, but we'll see. We did see on 3 October, the Netherlands called for the Houthis to be added to the European Union terrorist group list after the Houthis conducted an attack against the Dutch-flagged ship Minerva Gracht. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And on 7 October, we did see Houthi Foreign Affairs Under Secretary Ismail al-Mutawakkil, pictured here on the right, meet with the office head of UNOCHA in Sana'a, notably following Israel's attacks against Houthi cabinet members. Those did kill Houthi Foreign Minister Jamal Amr, who I don't believe he's been replaced yet. In terms of politics and governance from the Yemeni government perspective, a lot going on. Parliament Speaker Sultan al-Barakani has been in the hospital over the past couple of weeks as a result of a health condition for which he received surgery, unspecified. We did see various members of the PLC and other sort of entities reach out and express, sympathies with him or visit him. So we did see on 30 September, PLC member Tarek Saleh actually visit Barakani in a Cairo hospital. Saleh is ostensibly kind of aligned with his family traditionally ruled the General People's Congress. Barakani is a member, a leading member of the Yemeni government-aligned General People's Congress Party, so there is some affinity there, I believe. On 4 October, we did see Prime Minister Salim bin Barak, whilst he was in Abu Dhabi, meet with the kind of PLC-based members, the Abu Dhabi-based members of the PLC, including Idris al-Zubaydi and Abu Zara al-Mahrami. On 6 October, we did see reports that the PLC was convening in Riyadh for a meeting amid this ongoing dispute over whether PLC member and Southern Transitional Council President Idris al-Zubaydi has the authority to issue appointments. In particular, in areas of southern Yemen. Zubaydi insists that, and the STC insists that he has this right. More anti-STC forces have said that he is not. A couple weeks ago, they met and agreed to have the legal committee kind of review everything and sort of just conduct a review and reaffirm their partnership and everything. And so they came back to try to ostensibly iron out all the kinks. According to reports, mostly from anti-STC, but still, fairly somewhat credible sources, the legal committee stated that Zubaydi's appointments were not valid, but that was not made public or anything. And the meeting was delayed past 6 October to 10 October when they did meet with some of the members attending remotely. But so the readout from that meeting didn't mention the appointments controversy. They met in Riyadh. They issued a statement reaffirming their support for recent actions by the CBY Aden, which have been pretty big in stabilizing and appreciating the Yemeni rial, and a commitment to partnership, but did not really address the appointments at all. So which is fairly par for the course, I think, in terms of how the PLC addresses ongoing tensions between them. We did see on 7 October, Idris al-Zubaydi give an interview with Al-Hara TV, in which he stated a number of things that the STC is very proud of and that anti-STC folks consider very controversial. He did say that southern Yemen or South Yemen is not going to reunite with Yemen as a whole or come back to Sana'a, as he said it. He says that the name of the future state of South Yemen, the previous state of South Yemen from 1967 to 1990 was called South Yemen. He says it's going to be called South Arabia. because the STC does not want to be associated with Yemen at all. And then he also reaffirmed his right to appointments. So was anything resolved? I'm not sure. We're seeing the STC seemingly try to position itself to be a bit more aggressive in pushing its agenda over the course of the last several weeks now. That things do seem to be heating up, at least rhetorically, and possibly also in terms of movements in Hadramaut. So at least for these 2 weeks, no major rupture with regards to that. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Houthi movement perspective, we did see the Houthis abduct dozens of people in the lead up to the 26th September revolution anniversary, which is the anniversary of the revolution that toppled the Yemen's theocratic monarchy in 1962, which the Houthis, trying to establish a theocratic monarchy in Yemen, don't really like. So every year they do round up a lot of people. They abducted a human rights lawyer, Abdulmajid Sabra, but also dozens of others. We did see multiple addresses by Abdul Malik al-Houthi throughout the week, in which he addressed a number of issues, including the need to continue increasing the Houthis' military capabilities and kind of stabilize the economy, but also just the ongoing crisis in Gaza and the regional sort of conflict, which has been his major theme for the last 2 years now. We did see, following the announcement of a ceasefire in Gaza, the Houthis claimed this as a major victory and said that their efforts have been kind of integral in achieving that, but also stressed that they remain on full alert amid the ceasefire for any violations. And you should really take them at their word for that. Following the ceasefire in January 2025, where sort of Israel stopped attacking Gaza, the Houthis did stop their general maritime attacks, their attacks on Israel. Everything stopped. And then once Israel started restricting food into Gaza, then they started making threats, and as that intensified in Gaza, the Houthis re-intensified their activity. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. Something I think Israel, at the very least, is very aware of and is trying currently to figure out how to deal with through this lull. Wouldn't surprise me if they're continuing their intelligence outreach. In fact, we've seen reports that they're continuing their intelligence outreach in Yemen. They're continuing their planning. As things kind of maybe get a little bit less compressed and Houthi leaders start coming out, maybe they're going to start keeping better tabs on them so that the next round that comes along, they'll just be able to kill them more efficiently, as more or less what I kind of see as Israel's strategy there. We also did see on 4 October, the Houthi-aligned oil minister Amir met with the Oil, Gas, and Minerals Laws Drafting Committee, ostensibly because they're drafting a new law to govern this very important sector for Yemen. So that's something to keep an eye on in terms of what that's going to look like, how the Houthis are going to try to continue restructuring Yemen's economy. So that's more of a long-term concern. Moving on over to military and security in Yemen, behind the front lines, specifically as it relates to the Yemeni government. There's really been 2 major theaters this last 2 weeks. The first is in Taz Governorate, where we did see several incidents over the course of the last 2 weeks. So Taz is this, it's part of northern Yemen, so the STC doesn't want it. It's controlled by the Islah Party, which the STC very much doesn't like. But at the same time, there's also the Tariq Saleh aligned national resistance forces are controlled here, and then you have a bunch of UAE and Saudi-backed militias kind of sprinkled throughout. So on 30 September, we did see pro-Houthi media reports that the 2nd Giants Brigade commander, Hamdi Shukri, who is from the Subaiha area of Lahej, so ostensibly part of southern Yemen, but he really doesn't seem to like the STC, and is kind of seen as more of a Saudi-aligned figure, even though it gets amorphous at times. Reports, pro-Houthi media reported that he survived a sniper attack in Subaiha. The Houthis accuse Tariq Saleh's aligned forces here of sort of doing that because trying to move in and perhaps sort of take parts of Taz from other figures or other factions such as Islah, kind of move in and take control of this very lucrative trade route that also runs along kind of this route here. So Houthis are obviously going to play up any division, so take that with a grain of salt, but just it's also they're the only ones often talking about it, so it's worth flagging there. We did see on 2 October the Islah-aligned Tur al-Baha Axis commander, so it's sort of in this red area here, survived an IED attack during a security campaign that he was conducting after a security official under his command had been killed by gunmen, bandits, that kind of thing. We did see on 4 October Minister of Defense Mohsen Dairi inspecting STC-aligned forces in Radfan, which is, I believe, in kind of this area of Lahijir. Notably, the anti-STC forces played this up, but there were notably no Yemeni government flags there. There were Southern Transitional Council flags there. And so, yeah, again, this question of who is represented in the government, what is the government trying to do, is very contested. We did see on 7 October truck drivers complain that the Saudi-backed nation Shield forces had imposed a new collection point in Mudaraba and Ras al-Ara district of Lahej, which again is along this important coastal route between Aden and Mocha, which is you often see various different armed groups set up collection points to get money. On 9 October, we did see pro-Yemeni government media reports large Houthi reinforcements to Mawiya district in the northern area of Taz here. And then on 12 October, we also did see STC-aligned forces repel a Houthi infiltration attempt along the Karsh front, which is notably, we haven't, particularly over the course of the last 6 months, I would say, have not seen all that much all that many clashes along the front lines between the Houthis and anti-Houthi forces. Particularly prior to the Israel-Houthi conflict, we saw a lot of them. We saw a lot of, a weekly occurrence across multiple fronts. All the Houthis are trying to do this thing. The Yemeni government claims to shell them, kicks them back. Nothing happens, but you see it. That's been relatively quiet over the last several months. So keep an eye to see if that comes back with the sort of ostensible end of the Israel-Gaza conflict, as the Houthis are attempting to mobilize their forces, make people still feel engaged without having anybody to attack, which is normally what they do there. Moving over to the eastern part of the Yemeni government-controlled Yemen, we had a couple things of note. In Shabwa Governorate, we did see a couple sort of low-level incidents, pro-Houthi media reporting that the Harif tribesmen blew up a pipeline and clashed with UAE-backed forces in Usaylan district, kind of very low-level local dispute. Probably nothing going to come of it. They'll have you do see that kind of activity from time to time. 4 October, we did see pro-Houthi media report the 1st Giants Brigade's commander in Atak survived an IED attack by an unknown person, or actually not an IED attack, I believe it was a gunman attack by an unknown person. So not too much there. In Avian Governorate, we did see on 8 October pro-Houthi media report that an AQAP gunman had killed an STC-aligned force commander in Mudia district, which I didn't see confirmed elsewhere, but wouldn't be surprising considering that Mudia district is the center of AQAP activity, and we do see regular attacks there. But really the major locus of activity has been in Hadramaut Governorate, particularly between the kind of UAE-backed STC-aligned forces on the coast and Hadramaut Tribal Alliance aligned various forces and other Saudi-backed forces in the north here. On 1 October, we did see a pro-Houthi media report that the UAE-backed Roig 2nd Military Region had transferred 130 officers of the Hamum tribe, which is a very influential tribe, kind of positioned sort of along the coast, but it also, I think, bleeds a bit over into the plateau area. The Hamum tribe is important because several very prominent members of Hadrami politics come from the Hamum tribe. Most notably currently is Sheikh Amr bin Habrish, who's the leader of the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance and the major kind of anti-STC figure within the governorate's politics. We have seen reports of UAE-backed military institutions trying to clear out perhaps people that might be more aligned with bin Habrish before. And so these reports that they redeployed these 130 members from the strategically very important Daba sort of camp around near or about on the major oil export infrastructure along Hadramaut's coast to more isolated areas where they can't necessarily affect all that much. We did see also pro-Houthi media reports that the security support forces under Abu Ali al-Hadrami, who recently resurfaced in Hadrami politics after several years away, reportedly attempted to enter Brom Meifa district as well as around al-Shihr as well to try to increase their UAE STC aligned military presence at various positions along the coast there. They did reportedly pull back amid Hamoum resistance, at least in Brom Meifa. We did see between 5 and 9 October, we had reports that there had been understandings perhaps between the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance and local authorities under Governor bin Mahdi, who's been seen as more UAE aligned recently. There are reports that maybe they got a deal where the HTA would allow more fuel to go to coastal Hadramaut so that they could keep the power on, and things were getting there. The STC very condemned these as suspicious dealings that were against the interests of the governorate, but then the HTA later said that these were a dead end, that they were acting in good faith, but local authorities were not. And so that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And then we did see on 12 October, Amr bin Habrish, head of the HTA, presided over another graduation ceremony for forces aligned with the Hadramaut Protection Forces, which is a paramilitary group or militia aligned with the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance. According to certain reports, it is getting more Saudi support than it was. It didn't seem to be started as a Saudi-backed force, but there are reports, that you're seeing people getting recruited, getting paid in Saudi riyals, money's kind of moving around in a way that it wasn't necessarily before. Although I believe that was from a pro-Houthi source. So again, be a bit skeptical. But yeah, so that things building up, as I was saying, is stuff going to move around in the short term? Probably not, but mid to long term, maybe. Let's see here. Moving on over to military and security from Houthi attacks on Israel. So yeah, we saw them keep this up right up until the ceasefire. 29 September, we saw them launch or claim missile attacks on Tel Aviv and drone attacks on Eilat. Palestine 2 cluster missile attack on Jerusalem, although it didn't seem to there was no actual attack reported for many of these, so they could just very well claim it. Israel, in particular, between 7 and 9 October, claimed several drone attacks, either over or near Eilat, that didn't seem to harm anybody. And then, on 11 October, the Houthis claimed that the Israel-Gaza ceasefire agreement was their victory, or they were part of that victory, and say they will remain alert. And so, so if Israel goes back, they're going to go back. Whether they're going to continue, for instance, attacking U.S. ships after all of this because they sanctioned those U.S. oil companies, I think remains to be seen. Be a bit more cautious, perhaps, if you're a U.S. Oil company sending product through the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, which I'm not sure how many people are doing that anymore anyway. So that I am fairly confident the Houthis are going to power down as long as this ceasefire holds. Moving on over to maritime security, very similar kind of issue. On 29 September, we did see Houthi forces hit the Dutch flagship Minerva-Gracht with a missile 128 nautical miles southeast of Aden, which we covered at the end of last week's call, or 2 weeks ago's call. This attack did cause a fire. It did hit. It caused damage. The crew was evacuated. Some were injured. One later died of his injuries, I believe a Filipino national. And we did see on 30 September, the Houthis sanctioned those 13 U.S. oil companies in response to U.S. OFAC sanctions. These are the big heavy. So I think they did like Chevron. They did stuff like Marathon, like big name stuff, and a couple smaller ones kind of sprinkled in there as well. But yeah, it does seem to be a largely symbolic kind of rhetorical thing. And then, yeah, on 8 October, before the ceasefire was announced, but, Maersk introduced temporary surcharges due to this Red Sea, Gulf of Aden instability. We'll see how long they keep those. Illicit commerce. So there's been a lot of seizures of weapons bound for the Houthis seemingly over the course of the last several months now. I think at least 3 to 5 really big ones. 2 October, we did see SDC forces announce details of a major seizure that they took in August of 2025 that consists of 58 containers with 2,500 tons worth of weapons components from Djibouti that had been diverted from Hodeidah to Aden as a result of a blockade of Aden amid all of the military activity around there. These seized weapons included drones. They included drone production tools, weapons spare parts, jet engines, electronic devices, and currency printers. So yeah, they're definitely moving. This may actually be the first confirmed. I mean, we've all suspected it, but this may be the first confirmed sort of major shipment through traditional shipping containers, that kind of thing, that was bound for Hodeidah. People have been accusing Iran and the Houthis of using this, and the UN verification and inspection mechanism being inadequate in preventing the shipment of this kind of stuff via Hodeidah for years now. But that was a big one. We did see on 5 October, the 2nd Giants Brigades intercepted drone parts on a dhow off Lahej Governorate. And we did see on 11 October, the Yemeni government customs seized thousands of dual-use electronic items for drones and explosives at Sarfate border crossing between Mahra Governorate and Oman in far eastern Yemen. We did see on 9 October, the U.S. Department of Commerce also added more than a dozen Chinese companies to a restricted trade list over their seeming involvement in provision of drone parts to the Houthis and Hamas. So a lot going on there. There's been a lot of speculation about what's causing this giant spike. There's speculation that there's a leak somewhere, either on the Houthi side or on the Iranian side, because they really are getting really big shipments, and they're getting a lot of them. It's also worth noting that this has been something that people have been advising the international community to do for years. And there has been substantial investment over the long term, but definitely in the last year or two, as the Houthis have been engaged in international shipping attacks to improve the capabilities of the Yemen Coast Guard and other kind of factions sort of along non-Houthi controlled portions of Yemen's coast to try to, interdict this. That's been one of the major sort of policy recommendations for years, which is you need to interdict the supply lines between Iran and the Houthis. So maybe that's also contributing to, this bearing fruit of some sort. But yeah, they are getting seemingly a lot, particularly that August one. That's a lot, a lot of stuff going on there. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues and humanitarian affairs. Some good news, I guess. 29 September, we did see the World Food Program report that there had been a 34% drop in food prices in Yemeni government-held areas in August due to the appreciation of the Yemeni rial since July, I believe. We did see on 2 October, the Saudi Development and Reconstruction Program for Yemen hosted the Yemen Partners Group meeting with the United Kingdom, the UN resident coordinator, Gillian Harnais, as well as the World Bank Group, probably trying to mobilize humanitarian aid for Yemen. On 8 October, we did see, there was something interesting. So we did see on 8 October, Houthi-aligned state media reported that the UN Development Program in Yemen, the representative for that, met with a Houthi official. And it was just very interesting, the wording that they used, because it seemed very partisan, it seemed very political, but the Houthi-aligned state media claimed that the UNDP representative expressed condolences for the martyrdom of Prime Minister Ahmed al-Rawi, who died in Israeli attacks recently, and expressed solidarity with the Yemeni government and people, which if I was a betting man, I don't think the UN Development Program representative actually said that, because that's if so, that's recognizing the Houthis as the Yemeni government, which the UN doesn't do. And it's a very partisan kind of statement for a UNDP person to make, but that's something worth flagging and perhaps looking into. We did see on 12 October the International Committee for the Red Cross regional director for the Middle East, Nicholas von Arx, began a week-long visit to Yemen, so perhaps something will come of that. And last but not least, we did see on 12 October pro-Yemeni government media reports that the Syria UN resident coordinator Adam Abdulmullah is slated to succeed UN resident coordinator Julian Harnais. Picture of Adam Abdulmullah here on the right. He's from Sudan, has a PhD or something from Georgetown University, I believe, in international public law. So very accomplished guy, seems to have a lot going on. Julian Harnais has been in that position for a year now. He's been somewhat controversial, slightly more than a year now, I guess. But yeah, so maybe we're seeing a turnover here. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues from an infrastructure perspective in terms of oil and gas. We're looking at reports that in August 2025, World Food Program says that the fuel imports through Houthi-controlled Red Sea ports are down 27% year over year due to the ongoing Israeli attacks on port infrastructure. So now that there's an Israel-Gaza ceasefire, perhaps we will see an end to those. And the Houthis are going to try very hard to get that capacity back online. 6 October, we did see pro-Yemeni government media reports that there had been a deal between the HTA and Hadramaut authorities to allow, sort of for the HTA to allow fuel to be transported to Mukalla. That seems to have fallen through. On 10 October, we did see Aden electricity. This is a common thing report, that there was going to be an imminent shutdown in Aden electricity if fuel was not provided. All the diesel stations are out of service, so that's still going on. On 12 October, we did see SPC-aligned forces begin detaining gas tankers heading from Marib Governorate to Aden in Abyan. So Abyan's that sort of long, thin governorate connecting Shabwa with Aden, and then so it's a very strategic choke point where you see this often happen, where various militias or armed groups who aren't getting paid or want to make a point, or even local tribesmen who are trying to put pressure on the government, will just block tankers moving through one of the 2 or 3 roads moving through there. So we did see them do that. So that could very well cause gas shortages in sort of southwest areas of Yemen. Port infrastructure, we did see on 30 September, the Houthi-aligned Sana'a Chamber of Commerce announced an agreement to expedite containers from Djibouti port through Hodeidah. Ongoing attempts to try to move traffic through Hodeidah despite ongoing U.S. sanctions there. In terms of air infrastructure, Prime Minister bin Barak and a PLC member, Saleh, met with the General Aviation Authority and Yemeni Airlines to discuss operationalizing Mocha Airport, which has been constructed by the UAE over the course of the last several years and is based in kind of Tariq Saleh's main base in Mocha. They're trying to get that going. It has received flights and everything, but hasn't yet started receiving regular civilian flights. And then in terms of communications infrastructure, we did see on 6 October, the Yemeni government aligned Tele-Yemen signed an agreement to establish a satellite ground station in Aden. The Houthis say this is they're selling out Yemen's sovereign satellite rights. But I think perhaps the Yemeni government sees it as, strengthening their telecommunications capabilities outside of Houthi control. Last but not least, humanitarian economic issues, banking and currency. So really, most of what's been going on over the last several weeks now has concerned the National Committee for the Regulation and Financing of Imports, which have implemented a bunch of reforms that have strengthened the Yemeni government-aligned Yemeni rial significantly from about close to 3,000 of a dollar to now we're looking at somewhere between 1,440 to 1,600 against the dollar. So it really does seem to be working. Most people, most experts will say this is not going to be a sustained appreciation if the Yemeni government is unable to secure foreign exchange, either through injections from Saudi Arabia, which Saudi Arabia did give them $358 million recently, but that's not a whole lot for their needs, and that, or through the resumption of oil exports. So, there's still a lot of skepticism that this is going to be maintained, but we have seen this appreciation contribute to significant reductions in the cost of ordinary goods in Yemeni government-held areas. So we did see, throughout the week, on 1 October, the Customs Authority met to facilitate imports in line with NCRFI directives, particularly goods that had been brought into Yemen prior to the NCRFI directives, but hadn't been able to kind of get imported, more or less. Once those went into effect, so trying to get those kind of cases resolved. We did see on 7 October, the NCRFI met and stressed the need to comply with the NCRFI directives. In particular, one of the major ones that they issued is that all Yemeni government-aligned authorities are supposed to deposit their revenues at the Central Bank of Yemen, or not, and to centralize all of it. Currently, it's all over the place. So throughout the week, we did see as well, on 5 October, the Yemeni government-aligned Anti-Corruption Commission referred over 200 government entities, and they listed them all out. So if you're interested in that, sort of what particular ones, there is a list with the names of them there for failing to deposit their revenues in the CBY Aden. We did see on 9 October, Taz Governor Nabil Shamsan order the arrest of government agencies not depositing with the CBY Aden. So they really are trying to crack down on this stuff to rationalize revenues, rationalize their foreign exchange, and support the exchange rate. So they do seem to be serious here. The PLC, for the time being at least, we have seen some pushback from the money exchange folks who do not like the radical restructuring of the financial system here, but we have seen them kind of stand behind the CBY Aden on this. We did see on 2 October the Qatar National Bank and Rafidain Bank branches in Yemen liquidated their Yemen branches because they were both in Houthi-held areas. And due to the U.S. sanctions, it's just too much of an issue. So they're saying, okay, we're out. Between 7 and 9 October, we did see the Yemeni government conclude Article 4 consultations with the IMF in Amman. First time in 11 years that they've done these Article 4 consultations. We did see Prime Minister bin Barak meet with IMF Mission Chief Ashtar Perez Ruiz. And on 9 October, we did see the reports that the CBY Aden and the Yemeni government were beginning to disperse delayed government salaries. So, not the worst picture for Yemeni government-aligned economy or most areas of Yemen's economy, but perhaps not the best. So that's all I have for me. Thank you so much for listening to this. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please, if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to put them in the comments. If you'd like to reach out to me more personally, again, professionally, for professional contacts, please feel free to reach out at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you 2 weeks from now. Have a great one.